This is St Peter's Church in Walton in Liverpool. And in 1957, a local lad decided he was going to form a little skiffle group. So he got a load of his mates together and they called themselves the Blackjacks. But they decided that wasn't quite the correct name. They needed a better one. So they became the Quarrymen, I think naming themselves after the quarry from around Walton. They managed to get themselves a gig at the Walton Village Fete, and they played 2 sets that day. And in the intermission between those 2 sets, another young man introduced himself and said he was interested in skiffle and playing rock and roll, and he could play the guitar and sing. So he picked up one of their guitars, but he picked it up backwards and upside down because he was left-handed. And that got a little ripple of laughter from the lads in the Quarrymen. But he did a rendition of 20 Flight Rock by Eddie Cochran, and they were very impressed because he knew all the words, and there's a lot of words in that song. So they invited him to join the group. And when he got his feet under the table, he decided, I'm going to get my mate in this group. So he organised a meeting on the top deck of a double-decker bus and thrust his guitar into his mate's hand, and he played Raunchy by Dwayne Eddy, which was quite impressive at the time, lead guitar playing. If you had guitar lessons in them days, they would have been classical guitar lessons. There was no rock and roll guitar lessons. There was no YouTube tutorial videos. So they asked him to join the band. And they were doing gigs all over Liverpool. And eventually they decided to change the name The Quarrymen to the Beatles, the band that we all know and love. The biggest band to come out of Liverpool and the biggest band to come out of planet Earth. But you might be saying, what's that got to do with this graveyard, Kieran? It's a bit of a tenuous link for a Bimble. Well, in 1966 they released an album called Revolver. And that featured a track that only had Paul McCartney on it. The rest was all classical musicians, and that track was called Eleanor Rigby. And by some kind of coincidence or some kind of subliminal memory, there's a gravestone in St Peter's Church graveyard with the name Eleanor Rigby on it. Paul McCartney maintains that Eleanor Rigby was a fictitious character, and the name actually came from an amalgamation of different names that he'd come across in his travels. The Eleanor bit came from the actress Eleanor Bron, who was in the Beatles movie Help. And the Rigby bit apparently came from a shop in Bristol, Rigby and Evans Limited, wine and spirit shippers. A birth certificate was found for the Eleanor Rigby on the gravestone, and it went up for auction, and they asked Paul McCartney what he thought about it. And he maintained that it was a fictitious character, but if people wanted to spend the money on it, well, that was up to them. So it's still well worth a bimble to. Speaking of bimbling,
clouds kept the light from those eyes. Still, love grown consumed, and you know I'll never let it go. You'll find in time, I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. Mistake. To me it was a golden handshake to reapply those lazy arms.
You join me here at what's obviously a disused railway station. Either that or we're going to get run over by a train any moment. This is Derby Road railway station. And it was on the old Liverpool loop line. It was built in 1879 by the Cheshire Lines Committee. But between 1960 and 1972, it was closed in stages. And now it makes up National Cycle Route 62, the Trans-Pennine Trail, the greatest of the cycle routes. A lot of National Cycle Route 62 is made up of disused railways owned by the Cheshire Lines Committee. In fact, if you watch my video where I go from Lynn to Dunham Massey, that old railway line was a Cheshire Lines railway line. If you like your railways, you'll enjoy this section. There's a lot of railway architecture still in place. Not just this station where we stood, but a lot of big deep dark tunnels and some lovely railway bridges. This station is one stop after Knotty Ash. And I did look on OpenStreetMaps to see whether the Jambutti mines were listed, but they don't seem to be on there.
To me you were the sun itself. To me you were a warming hand that melts to the bone. The flowers grown from my heart. I was a drifting line, drawn between a light to capture, but only shown in pictures sewn from my arms. Over time, clouds kept the light from those eyes. Still love grown consumed. Let it go. You'll find in time. I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. To me it was a long mistake. To me it was a golden handshake to reapply those lazy arms in my heart. To you it was a dream it mended. To you it was a dream suspended. To relocate right from the break to the start. Over time, clouds kept the light from those eyes. Still, love grown consumed. And you know, I'll never let it go. You'll find in time. I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. Kept the light from those eyes. Still, love grown consumed. And you know, I'll never let it go. You'll find in time. I'll never let it go. You'll find it's right. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. I'll only ever know how to speak my mind. My mind.
This is the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, and it's 127 miles long with 91 locks And it goes all the way from here in Liverpool, past Wigan, past Blackburn and Burnley, Skipton, Keighley, over the Pennines and all the way to Leeds in Yorkshire. It wasn't without its engineering challenges. And they had to come up with great solutions, like the Bingley 5 rise. That's 5 locks, one after the other. Or the Foul Ridge Tunnel, which is only just shy of being a mile long. And you couldn't take horses down there. You would have to leg the tunnel. Legging is where you lie on top of your barge and sort of, with your legs, walk along the side of the tunnel. And that would propel you through the tunnel and get you to the other side, where you would be met by your horses who'd gone all the way over the big hill. The first section of the canal was dug here in Liverpool, and the first sod was taken from the soil in 1770 in Horsehall, which is just a little bit north of Liverpool. The chief engineer was a Mr. John Longbotham, but he wasn't the first choice. The first choice was obviously James Brindley, who was very famous for his canals. But he had a lot on his plate, and it was left to Mr. Longbotham, who unfortunately also had a lot on his plate. He'd been surveying lots of different canals, like the Lancaster Canal and the Grand Western Canal in Devon. And eventually the Leeds-Liverpool Canal Company got a bit fed up with him and sacked him. And he tried a few business ventures, but they didn't work. And he died a pauper in 1800. And in fact, the Leeds-Liverpool Canal Company actually paid for his funeral because there was no money to pay for it. It's quite apt that the first section of the Leeds-Liverpool Canal was dug in Liverpool, because the last section of the Leeds-Liverpool Canal was also dug here. In 2009, a £22 million project was put in place to link the Leeds-Liverpool Canal to Liverpool city centre, in fact the Albert Dock. That was all thanks to the Canal and Rivers Trust. I do love a canal. I see them as my little bicycle motorways. And this little bicycle motorway is going to get me back into Liverpool city centre and on my train home, hopefully.